We have such a high level of homelessness and unaffordable housing. We need to do a better job of building alternative sustainable housing. Again, outside of the box. Don't look at the traditional housing models. A pretty good mix here, 2 successful entrepreneurs and 1 housing expert with the state of Washington. So we're really eager to hear from this panel. So Dan, I'll let you start out, okay?
So those of you who don't know me, my name is Dan Seidel. I run the Entrepreneurial Institute of Washington. Our focus is professional development for small businesses, particularly those owned by people of color and women. I've been serving and performing work and advocacy. Unfortunately, I am over 45 and I'm not retired, but we won't hold this against our young Generation Z or over here. But over my lifetime, I have been really focused on trying to find mediums and vehicles and bridges to really empower people to leverage business and entrepreneurship to grow wealth. If you go to YouTube, you'll see that we actually have a number of videos. This is free education, and then we put it right on YouTube for folks to learn. And if you go to YouTube, you'll find that we have classes on blueprint reading, estimating, project management, supervision, and a number of other subjects. And so our focus has really been trying to find ways to give our people tools to replicate and really mirror successful businesses like Justin's business, Synergy. And so over the years, I've been blessed to work with contractors from under $1 million a year in revenue to over $3.5 billion a year in revenue. And these experiences have created a platform for me to be able to really share these best practices. And so that's what I've really spent most of my life doing. And EIW, the Entrepreneurial Institute of Washington, or eiwashington.org if you want to look up the website, that's the vehicle that I really put a lot of my philanthropy. And so I volunteer a lot, like you said that you want to do when you work for nonprofits. That's what I do. I'm one of the founders of the Tabor 100 organization, which is celebrating almost 30 years in organization. I'm one of the founders of the National Association of Minority Contractors. So what I'm going to talk about today, and we have a very talented panel, and so I feel just blessed to be a conduit to be able to bring these talented people to you. But my focus is really leveraging technologies that can bring fast results. A lot of people that have been talking to us for years have talked to us about long-term strategies on creating wealth. For me, my dad was killed when I was 2. His dad was killed when he was 6 months old. Some of us don't have 45 years to achieve wealth. Some of us don't have 80 years or whatever that number may be. And so really focusing on those areas that can bring sustainability as well as economic development. And that's where I met this young lady to the right. I served on Washington's Community Economic Revitalization Board. That's also the place where I met Andrea and all the wonderful work that she's doing for our Indigenous community. And the work that she's doing is one that needs to be replicated in all communities. And I consider her a mentor just as much as a friend. And I'm learning a lot from her and hearing the gratitude that many of you are sharing about her mentorship. That's what I live for. And so what I'm trying to do with a number of really smart people is trying to develop smart solutions for affordable housing. Over there where you see where Andrea is standing, there are 3 models of what is called a structural insulated panel building. And those are renderings that our really smart architect, David, was not able to join us. This guy's so smart, he has a master's degree from Harvard. Y'all, he's a brother. So he is not only brilliant, he understands and appreciates and recognizes our community and what we need in our communities. However, what you see right here is conventional construction, okay? And I'm just going to pass it around so folks can take a look at it. My concept is really to develop something more clean, something more environmentally responsible, something that's a healthy product that will absorb carbons, that's mildew and pest resistant, and really creates an environment where your children can grow up and live and learn without being contaminated by many of the environmental impacts that we have. This right here, and I don't know if any of you, raise your hand if you've ever worked with fiberglass insulation, or have you ever touched that crappy stuff. Look, I got a look, y'all, I got a baby soft face. Look at that. So I'm gonna throw that out there. That is called hemp wool, and that the insulation value on that hemp wool is equivalent to sheep's wool. You hear me? That is equivalent to sheep's wool. Now, obviously we've legalized marijuana in this state, and there's a surplus of product. And one of the largest factories, I believe, is in Idaho, where they process this. And I'm an entrepreneur, and I really didn't have interest. I was trying to avoid this sector as long as I could. And then they kept finding ways of coming in front of me. And finally I was like, look, y'all, you need to find out something that we can do something for the environment, we can do something for the community, and it's not going to have the perception of someone sitting on the couch eating some Cheetos with a big cigar-like blunt in their mouth. Bless you. And what I found is that this technology is something that is clean, it's environmentally sound. How long does it take for one of these alders to grow? How long does it take for a cedar tree to grow? How long does it take for some of those beautiful California redwoods to grow? So it's really talking about developing systems that are sustainable without reinventing the wheel. Y'all, they've been using hemp to build for paper, for building, for thousands of years, not hundreds of years. And so sometimes we let our focus on development really take degrees, and we don't absorb those natural foundational pieces that we could have incorporated into our life. And so we're trying to develop some systems that will really help. The technology is very light too. I have a 96-year-old grandma. She can lift some of these panels. Those panels over there, there's 3 models. One building is a studio, it's 35 panels, like IKEA. 35 panels. Y'all are too young to know about the Sears and Roebucks, but you used to be able to order a building from Sears and Roebucks, and it'd send you several thousand pieces, and you put that mug together. You better have some skills. This is one that you don't necessarily need to have the years of carpentry and the years of mechanical, electrical, plumbing. These are modular systems, and so those technologies, one is 35 panel, one is 45, one is 62 panels. We can erect 3 of them in a day. I'm gonna say that one more time. We can do 3 of these in a day.
What are the panels again? 35 what?
35 panels, 45 panels, and 62 panels. And so each one of those models. And so our concept is not only to create, affordable housing. Now there's a lot of ways that you can create affordable housing. You can 3D print a house, but how many people are you putting to work? How many of my brothers and sisters are you putting to work on building that 3D house? That's a 2-person operation. We have thousands of people that we need to improve their lives. We have thousands of people that need to learn some skills that they can take home and feel proud and be able to have a family wage, one that they can support their family and maybe be able to buy a couple of these so they could rent out. And so the price point is under 50 grand and all the way up to under 100 grand. All the units are under 500 square feet right now. There's interest in units that are bigger. We can build units that are substantially bigger, and I'm going to leave that part of the presentation to Justin and all the wonderful skills and background that he has. And lastly, this is concept. Notice the title, Wakanda. Wakanda for Washington. But you all know Black Panther is. So our concept is really to have responsible buildings that incorporate housing, obviously community. We have commercial, or what we call non-residential buildings within these units. The 62-panel building is designed to be a building that can be designed for business. One can actually run a community business within this community. And so you'll see different colors within this site plan. We have community gardens. We have a culinary institute. Modern Mini Homes has a manufacturing setup. The institute is set up for professional development and training, so our goal is to set up pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship. But really, this is an opportunity, this is the future. Now, we're talking about SIP technology, structural insulation panel technology, and I'll let you pass that around as well. But there's different types of modular technologies, and there's different types of green buildings. My home, we're in my county, I have an ICF home, an insulated concrete form home, full of concrete. There are people are retrofitting shipping containers, creating homes. People are buying these steel fabricated blockable buildings. People are building tiny homes that look like little sheds, and they kind of are because they don't have insulation or kitchen and baths. All of our units have kitchen and baths. You need to have some running water. You need to be able to, use proper hygiene. You need to be able to cook your family a meal. And so we're really looking at different technologies. And then there's CLT. And there's so many different modern modular technologies that are out there right now. The key is to find the right technology that empowers our community. It creates an opportunity for simplified workforce development for low-skilled folks to high-skilled. We want to be able to put everyone to work. We don't want to leave anyone down. And we also want to be able to have folks be a part of the design and engineering and project management and the logistics of building. And they can take that in their own business, because again, we love to promote entrepreneurship, but they can also, bless you, they can also take it to companies like Synergy and help them continue to grow across the nation. That's my presentation. I'd like to be able to pass the baton over to Justin and have him share some information about Synergy, their history, some of the very sexy, I use the term sexy because construction typically isn't sexy. We're trying to put sexy back into construction. Can you feel this? Look at this panel. So again, you're going to hear about some really exciting things, and maybe I'm using the wrong term, but I think that's what exactly construction needs. We need to make it attractive. A lot of our people, they want to drive a nice car, and they think only you have to be able to sing or talk in a mic in order to be able to, or be an athlete in order to drive one of them cars. Well, some of our people are strong enough to build their own manufacturing, develop their own factory, develop their own manufacturer, build their own cars. And so that's what we're trying to spur and inspire. So again, just really happy to be here and blessed to have people like Justin in my life, and I'm sure you're going to love to hear what he says.
Thank you, Dan. Really, first, very humbled and very appreciative to be here. And for those that were here last night, it really means a lot, and seeing what you guys are all doing is just incredible. So, very humbled. Really, I'm just here as a resource. So I can give you a little backstory about who we are, what we do, but really want to just be a resource that anybody in this room can call on, pull from, ask questions, learn from. If there's a building technology out there, we've probably used it, or we've at least looked into it pretty thoroughly. So can be a resource into anything and everything that's out there, from the latest and greatest on prefab, volumetric modular, and all traditional site-built methods. So very briefly, so we're Synergy Inc. and Synergy Modular. We're a 32-plus year commercial general contractor. We built affordable housing, market rate housing, general commercial, healthcare over the last 32 years, headquartered out of the Pacific Northwest. We now have offices down in Arizona and Texas, and then do work all through the coast, in California, Oregon, Washington, all the way over to Texas, and then kind of going up north through Colorado and up into Montana and everything in between. So we're working in all of those markets. Right now, we're active on 2 different full volumetric modular, well, 3 different full volumetric modular projects. We just started one this week. As far as volumetric modular, what that means, and just getting into this a little bit, is building entire multifamily units off-site in a factory, finishing them complete. So, for example, we're building a high-end hotel in Sunnyvale, California right now. It's being manufactured in Portland, completely finished, beds installed. So when I say finished, I mean you could move into this hotel room. It just doesn't have power and plumbing hooked up. The beds are in it, it is done, and then trucked down, crane set like Legos in place. Then we go through, pull all the utilities vertically through the building, seam it all together structurally. It's all to the highest and greatest structural and seismic and sustainable standards. Everything to, we're doing a 100-unit affordable housing project in Shoreline right now. That is wood volumetric modular. That's in a partnership with City of Shoreline, King County, and Catholic Housing Services, come together to do its 2 levels of podium right on Highway 99, Aurora. It's a big slope. So 2 levels of podium, then do crane set like Legos again, 100 units of housing right on top of the podium. That's under construction right now. We're gonna have a setting event actually, if anybody wants to go. It's December 19th. That project, just for baseline, because we also build a lot of things traditionally too. So this being it's under Davis-Bacon commercial wages, as well as Washington State, but it's the higher of the 2. We're delivering that hard cost around $260,000 a unit, all in hard cost, affordable housing, right now under construction. So for comparison, most projects in the greater Seattle area are well over $300,000 a unit. In addition to that, we're doing it about 40% faster, double wall construction with an air gap, which is traditionally reserved for high-end condominiums. So you cannot hear anything between units. It's also to evergreen sustainable design standards, of course. Anything and everything, when you hear modular, I don't want you to ever think that means it's somehow cheaper or corners are being cut. It's higher quality, more consistency, much safer to build, and it's to every building code that exists out there. But as far as being a resource again, and I just want to kind of get through this quickly because I really want to hand the microphone over. We have built projects, so again, from the site built side, anything you can think of, but from a modular side, through your traditional stick frame, wood volumetric modular, full tube steel, chassis modular, shipping container modular, light gauge steel modular, now I-beam steel modular. We're now working on CLT volumetric modular, which they've been using in Europe, and if things go quickly enough, could be the first volumetric CLT modular project in the United States. Yeah.
What is CLT in rural mean?
Sorry, cross-laminated timber.
Thank you.
So, for those who don't know, cross-laminated timber, it's a great building material that has really had quite a surge in the last few years. It is extremely carbon friendly. Think about your glulam beams that everybody is familiar with. So you're building entire slabs out of wood that is sustainably grown and then pressed together and glued together. And it has the fire rating and structural capacity like steel or concrete would. So you can do tall buildings, but the embedded carbon, you can actually get to a carbon positive footprint from your building. Sure did. Sure did. And the largest CLT facility in the country, I believe, is in Spokane. Yes. So again, as a resource, if technology exists, we've either looked into it or built it in. So any questions anybody has, and then right now, our mission is to solve the affordable housing crisis. And building better and building faster and building at a lower cost is a tool. It doesn't go anywhere near solving the affordable housing crisis. That requires the whole community to do that. And it requires, we can remove the unpredictability out of the process. We can remove a lot of time out of the process. We can even reduce cost out of the process. But it requires a fundamental shift in how we develop housing. It requires a fundamental shift from looking at the people that live in the housing as part of the product, because that's how housing is developed today, and shifting that into designing and building for the people who are living in the building as the customer, as that's their house, as that's the end use. And once that fundamental shift takes place, we're building higher quality units, and the industry will compete to bring higher quality units to the market at a lower cost. Because right now, the industry competes to drive a better return back to their investors. And that's true on affordable housing, subsidized affordable housing, market rate housing, hotels, offices, you name it. So that, yeah.
What is the construction time period for the modulars versus stick-builds? And then what percentage of the overall project costs are the transportation costs?
Sure, so our question is on overall time savings or time comparison between traditionally built and a modular built building. And also what percentage of the cost would be in transportation. So of course there's a range there that varies. So take the project in Shoreline, there's 2 levels. There's 30 plus foot shoring wall holding up Highway 99, 2 levels of concrete podium. There's a fair amount of cost and schedule in building up that podium back up to the street level before we actually start grade setting the mods. In any case, you can always look at it that's going to save 5 to 6 months at a minimum. On any sort of sizable multifamily project. Because in less than the time it would take you to frame 1 floor, you'll have the building sitting there. It's already there. And now you just need to go through and finish corridors, exterior, and utilities. So the time savings is very significant. I couch that with, there have been a lot of modular projects that have not had great time savings. And that is really what drove us into the industry. We went into the industry back in 2015 and entered into an industry that was fragmented, did not have very good processes. The people general contractors didn't trust the modular suppliers, architects had never done it before, developers were trying to develop just like it was a traditionally built building. And we took that entire process, and now I travel around trying to educate developers, A, to stop screwing it up at site selection, architects, B, to stop screwing it up at massing, contractors, C, to stop screwing it up all the way through, and work with your offsite supplier, and that it completely changes the order of operation to how to do that. So if done correctly, you'll have a minimum of 5 to 6 month time savings. Then transportation costs are relatively nominal. So in general, there's going to be a supplier within about 800 miles or so of any site in the United States. And most of the cost of the transportation is actually picking it up and dropping it off. The cost per mile obviously fluctuates with fuel cost, but in a given project, I'm going to go, it's probably about maybe 5% of the cost of the modules. So it's not a huge number, but it's also not insignificant.
Then what's the maximum number of units that you saw in modular?
So she just asked what is the maximum number of units that we've done modular. So we're working on we've done a 280 box project. I was just on a conversation this morning, I don't know if we'll be doing it or not, but we were just on a conversation this morning for a 443 unit project that's going into the Bay Area that will be modular. So there's no really, the bigger the better with modular because of the repeatability and because you can, a lot of your procurement, you have a factory there, so all the supply chain issues that everybody's been dealing with, all the just-in-time deliveries that you need with a traditional development, you don't have any of that. You get to order early, store all of your materials in a bonded warehouse well ahead of construction start, and you get better purchasing methods because you do have a bonded warehouse to store all of your materials. So it's really bigger the better. A lot of modular suppliers are either good at least 80 units and above, or specialty smaller projects.
Real quick. One of our goals is actually to develop modular sites, micro sites, manufacturing sites across the state of Washington, and then to take that across the country. And so some of the mileage challenges, and as you look at the carbon footprint in building conventional versus modular, you may see some other efficiencies that we can develop. And by the way, I made a statement about athletes, and I got this brother sitting in a row back, and I think he's still mad. So we both played college football. I did track and field too, so we ain't got nothing wrong with athletes. But we want to obviously be able to leverage the entrepreneurship and being able to own the teams as well as play for the teams. I'm sorry, I just had to.
Oh, you talking about me? I knew you were talking about.
And I used my head as a battering ram for 5+ years in college, so it's a proof that it can grow back.
Good heavens. Yeah, 2 entrepreneurs and a bureaucrat. I'm sure that's a joke, right? Hello, everyone. Wow, there's so much going through my head right now. Thank you both. I happen to adore alternative construction technologies. I'm Ann Campbell. I'm the managing director for Commerce's homeownership unit in the housing division. Thank you for this opportunity to be here. I'm going to talk to you about a number of things. I'm going to talk to you about the work that the Homeownership Disparities Work Group has been doing for the last year, analyzing homeownership disparities in our state, and the report that they've recently released called Improving Homeownership Rates for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. I'm going to talk a little bit about the the Washington Homeownership Resource Center. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Homeownership Assistance Fund that is out there. I'm going to touch a little bit on the construction stuff, and I'm going to talk a little bit about siting. I'm going to talk a little bit about the funding that I have. I'm going to talk a little bit about ledge session. So I hope I have enough time to cover all that, but I've been known to talk fast. Okay, let's start at the bottom. Housing is freaking expensive. It is expensive for all of us. I did an analysis of the actual cost of homes that were sold in our state in September as published by Northwest Multiple Listing Service. So that covers 26 counties in our state. And I compared it against Employment Security's data for the income for those same 26 counties. And that is real-time data that Employment Security gets from all of our employers, okay? And Washington, our agency, my program, considers affordability 38% of your take-home pay for housing. So that's principal, interest, taxes, insurance, that sort of thing, right? 38%, which seems kind of low when you actually look at what rent is, right? The only county on that list of 26 counties that had a home that sold that would be considered affordable was Ferry County. So it's not our imagination, that's the only county that had a house that sold that could be deemed affordable in September. So that's just a real world situation that we are dealing with. So these guys are talking about construction. We are here to talk about alternative housing options. So what do we do when houses are expensive? Houses are expensive because we don't have enough of them. Since the housing crisis that happened due to speculation, due to out of control financing tools in the early 2000s, we have drastically underbuilt our home units, our apartment units, everything else. We have also at the same time had a massive influx of human beings into our state. People have moved in, people have been born, the whole situation. We have a massive amount of growth, we have a massive amount of underbuild. We cannot build enough housing to keep people housed right now. So what do we do about it? As these folks have already talked about it, we look at building more. We build apartments, we build single family homes, we build duplexes, we build fourplexes, we build other things. What else do? We look around us, we do things like the homeownership study, and we analyze why are people struggling to be homeowners? Well, we also have flat wages. But we look deeper than that. Why are wages flat? And we look at the historic displacement. We look at the historic underinvestment. We look at the redlining that started before the VA's decisions back in at the tail end of World War II when they were handing out the GI Bill loans, starting with our soldiers who came home from World War II. And they said the white soldiers could get investments, they could go to school, and they could buy homes here, but everybody else, nope, not gonna happen. Or, oh, you can only move here, or oh, you got these lower rates. That's not the starting point, but it's a measuring point sort of in current memory, in current living memory. And it gets worse. And we are at a point in time now where the homeownership rates for our Black and our Indigenous and our people of color communities is worse now, despite the Fair Housing Act, despite the Equal Credit Opportunity Acts, than it was in the 60s. And we have to do something to fix that. And so we are working through various policy groups, including the Black Homeownership Initiative. We are still working with our homeownership work group. We are still working with the governor's office. That is why I was almost late today, to talk about ways that we can work with community organizations to support their work to bridge the gap, to right these historic wrongs, to provide redress, remediation, what have you. Part of that is providing investment, and not so that the state says, oh, build this way, not so that the state says, build this house here, but so that the state says, hey, we have this funding, and tell us what your community needs. What kind of homes do your community need? Does your community want what I call a CLT, which is a community land trust, where your nation, your tribe, has this land and it wants to build homes on the land, and it sells the homes to families, to households, and that the tribe owns the land, so the homes are sold to these households at a much reduced rate. So the households, the families, have those homes that are designed and built for them specifically, so they get the home ownership, they get that benefit, and it stays within that family, or they can sell it to other families that meet the requirements that the tribe has established. And the only thing that the state has done is provide seed money for that, to start that process. That's what the state would be doing, things
So
of
what
that
is the
nature.
seed money amount?
Beg pardon?
What is the seed money amount?
Well, right now, I have a $25 million competitive notice of funding availability that is published on the Commerce website that would provide either capital dollars for construction or down payment assistance funding. So either one, it would either provide money for buying the land and building the homes, or it would provide money for the closing costs and the down payment assistance to actually buy the homes themselves.
And do you ever work with counties?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and we can absolutely go into more details about that here in a moment. Yes, sir.
I never heard of this before on a resolution. So is this just on PL 280 tribes?
Repeat the question.
This is being discussed?
The question was that this is not something that has been heard of before. This is only with specific tribes. And this is an idea, this is a concept that would be available to any federally recognized tribe that chose to pursue this type of activity. A community land trust is a specific type of ownership structure where an organization, and it could be a tribal nation, it could be a nonprofit organization, owns the land, but sells the homes that sit on top of it. So when a household or when a family goes to buy their home, instead of paying for the full value of the land and the house, they're only paying for the house. So the house is cheaper because they're not having to pay for the land itself. Now, if this is an intriguing notion, we have currently executed a contract with an organization called Grounded Solutions. Grounded Solutions is a nationally known organization that teaches the process of creating and maintaining a community land trust to people who are interested in it. So they will be creating material specifically for Washington State, the geographic area, not the political entity, to learn more about community land trusts and whether or not it is of interest to you, to your people, to your friends, to your neighbors. And if it is, teaching the steps on how to go from a group of interested people to an actual community land trust. So they are in the steps of providing that material and bringing that material forward for people in just our state. So we have, that's an option for various ways of doing the housing that we've been talking about, to set it up from the ground up. And as far as building the houses, one of the things that was mystified me, and I've been building affordable housing for almost 6 years now, is the question of, well, can we build modular? I have yet to have a competitive funding round where we've actually, except for the one that was specifically for modular, where the type of construction mattered. As long as it can last for a minimum of 25 years or 40 years or 50 years, the type of construction was irrelevant. Modular housing is fast, it is incredibly energy efficient, and it's kind of fun. It's like playing with Legos or Lincoln Logs. Some of us still like to play with Legos and Lincoln Logs. But the thing that is so unique, and the thing that I would love to work with tribal organizations more about with regards to home ownership is, and I was talking with a friend of mine about this, is that folks who work with tribes, who have contracts with tribes, so like say gooey duck harvesters, there are seasons for gooey ducks. And so you have your income that comes in, but it's not necessarily all year round, it's seasonal. So when you go to a traditional bank to get a loan, and they look at your income and they say, oh, well, you only have income for this many months out of the year, what are you doing the rest of the year? Because it's a traditional bank and they're looking at it through a traditional lens. And then they're going, oh, well, how are you going to make your payments for the rest of the month? Well, hello, you can take your income from this many months and spread it out through the rest of the year. Teachers have been doing it for years. But it's informing those lenders, it's informing how all of that works, that educational component to teach the lenders to look beyond the formulas that their computer systems use, teaching the loan originators, teaching the underwriters to look beyond just what their automated systems are telling them, and to look at the systems and the cultures and the various approaches. I was actually just having this conversation on Tuesday with the Mortgage Bankers Association. But there are various different ways of achieving homeownership and documenting the income necessary to get those loans to purchase those homes. And good heavens, I'm all over the place, aren't I? Sorry, like I said, I have a million things going on in my head. But rolling back, so you've got the community land trust type of model for homeownership. You have a sweat equity type of construction for building a home where you have land, you work with one of these organizations or a similar type of organization, but instead of having them do all of the work, say that you contract in and you do some of the finished work, or that your organization or your folks have special skills in one of the trades, and so you can come in and do the plumbing or the wiring or what have you, that would help to cut down the cost of development. There are ways to kind of layer that in. It's just a case of building relationships with your construction folks. So I want to just touch on,
Yeah, we'll pull it up.
okay, can we pull up the homeownership Resource Center? So the Washington Homeownership Resource Center is a nonprofit organization that is financed in part by the Department of Commerce. And the Washington Homeownership Resource Center covers the spectrum from providing information on how to go from the concept of wanting to find what to be a home buyer, from homebuyer education courses, through folks who are struggling with their home payments, so they're having problems with making their home payments, about talking to mediators if they're struggling with foreclosure options, all the way through to making references and referrals on the foreclosure process. They're also part of that. The Resource Center is also the portal that is currently taking referrals for the Homeownership Assistance Fund, the HAF funding. Now, HAF funding is a federal resource that can provide up to $60,000 for homeowners who are behind on their mortgage payments as a result of COVID. It's a referral process that is being administered in part between the Homeownership Resource Center and the Washington State Housing Finance Commission. And I wanted to bring this resource out and to everybody's attention because it covers the entire continuum of the homeownership spectrum. So for those who are interested in learning about becoming a first-time home buyer, all the way through to those who are home buyers or who have family members who are homeowners who are struggling, that this is a one-stop resource shop for that sort of thing, to help with that. Yeah, okay. And with that, I think I'm going to pause for questions. Yes, sir.
So you're with the state or the feds?
I am with the state of Washington.
So, and my next question is because you're doing this on the CLT, so would you also, like, let's say as a native person, and because it can take so long to get land turned to trust, state land, how long is it taking you to get it turned into trust land?
Okay, so that's a great educational moment for me. So when I'm talking about a community land trust, let me switch my gears. So, and please everyone forgive me, I'm going to be speaking from some ignorance here, so please correct me. A community land trust is a corporate structure. It is not the same thing as tribal trust lands.
Okay.
So if this was tribal trust lands, the tribe could take a piece of it and build houses on it with, say, commerce money, and then sell those houses to
families at a reduced rate because commerce money could be used as grant, just take that off the top and sell it to the homes. And then the tribe would have, no change in land owned. Or the tribe could buy new land and then build houses on that new land. The tribe retains ownership of that land, and the tribe sells the homes to tribal members at the reduced rate, and that land and the tribe and the homes are part of the tribe's community land trust, and then that would stay as home ownership that way. And it's not the same as tribal trust lands. It's a different kind of structure.
Yeah, that's why I was curious if you're working with the PL280 tribe or 633 tribe. When you're saying state, I got excited because I was thinking I would like to purchase land and get a turn trust land, and thinking if you had a fast way to do that. I want to be friends.
I got you. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Sorry.
You want to be friends with her?
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
It sounds like you're working in your office, and, I don't know how accurate this is, but I've heard that there's a lot of land being bought up by big investors around the nation and actually around the world. I read an article about it happening in Italy, and that's impacting the land. So smaller amount of people are buying more land, and it's caused and housing. Have you guys discussed that, or at the legislative or governor's level, or I don't know if I'm making sense.
Well, so the question was that there has been a lot in the news about institutional investors buying up properties around the country and in other countries. And has that been discussed at the state level? And I can share that at a policy level, we have had many discussions about the impacts of the I can't remember what the proper term for it is, but like the Airbnb and the VRBO type of market where people will buy single-family homes and rent them out on a per-night basis, and the impact that that has on the housing market. Because those homes are not available for people to either live in permanently or to rent for long-term because they are providing a return on investment to their owners at a much higher rate than a month-to-month basis would. But currently, and I'm not an attorney, my limited understanding is that there is the state constitution and the federal constitution with the right to commerce, not the Department of Commerce, but the business activity, has a prohibition against the government weighing in on what you can and cannot do on your business assets per se.
Regarding the Washington Homeowners Resource Center, is that limited to a more traditional home or condo, or is that also open to people who have like modular homes or mobile homes, so a non-traditional home?
Okay, so the question was, is the Washington Homeownership Resource Center limited to stick-built or condominium type of homes, or is it available to people with modular or manufactured homes? And much like Commerce, the Washington Homeownership Resource Center is completely agnostic on the construction type of home. You simply have to have one. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I wanted to weigh in on just two things, because you're talking about everything in home ownership. And everything we do is on the rental side of things, and generally more of a commercial, just a rental side of things. So there's a lot of things that what you were saying that made me think of things to tie together. So we work with groups, for example, that have land and have a demand for housing, and then through different, if there are different funding opportunities, with predictability of the process using off-site construction, we can say, well, we know exactly what we could build, how much it'll cost when it'll be done, and we also know that it'll be full. So that through a combination of a master lease of the facility, that allows, on the private side, us to get the development financing, because we know it's going to be full in the end. And if the land is then leased, you just removed the land cost basis out of the equation. And oftentimes, there's a solution there where, from the private market side, can deliver housing into a community that then the community ends up owning down the road. And if there's a window where that rent goes back and pays for the cost of construction, and after that, it's just owned free and clear in a community that didn't have to pay for it in the first place. So there are some great benefits that can overlap on both sides, and I'm just being the rental side. Another thing that just came up in your question is when I use the word modular, and she said modular or manufactured, one thing that's not common is that is a very big distinction. So manufactured housing is built under the HUD building codes that came out of the 60s and 70s when HUD wanted to come up with a series of building codes that allowed us to deliver housing much more cost effectively. And that is the manufactured housing that we have today. Modular refers to a building method, but it's still built using the same local building codes that any site-built building would have, which is either the IEEC or the IRC International Residential Code or International Building Code. Building Code. Better get that straight. I'm hanging out with the International Code Council in a couple weeks. So I just wanted to make that distinction. But anyhow, I just thought that was from the rental side, there are very similar options available as well.
Andrea?
Yeah. I think going back to what Will's saying, so we have to, as natives, there's a big distinction of building on tribal trust land, building on the reservation of land that's held in trust. So, for example, if I want to move home to Nia Bay, it would be virtually impossible. There's absolutely no housing available. Yeah, we have lots of land, but there's a lack of housing because all the housing stock comes through the tribal housing program under HUD. Now, we did do one mixed-use development where people were able to build their own home and own it with the help of Iris and the 184 program. Remember when Wendy did that development, and it was a mixed-use housing where we have supportive housing, people coming out of treatment. We have some manufactured homes in that neighborhood and privately owned. So it was really a great project. But one thing that I observe as a urban Indian is that we have nada for working families, for urban Indians. And those of us, especially that work in the non-profit sector, don't make enough money to qualify for a decent home to buy if you live in the Seattle metro area, right? I mean, how many, I owned a home before I got divorced. I had a big, huge house, but, so what would alternative housing models look like? And that's what Dan and I have been discussing, is the idea that I feel comfortable with, which is a community land trust. I feel comfortable with that because that's just a native tradition. We're all working together. We're gonna go in as a team, we're gonna buy this land, and we're gonna develop some housing, but everybody can own their own home, but the land is leased and held in that community trust, which lowers the cost for the homeowner. And then, like Dan is doing with your Wakanda in Seattle, adding in other services like workforce development and Black Panthers and movie theater. No, so that's what I want you guys to think about and think outside of the box. Because if we don't start doing it now, nobody's going to come and help us. Who's going to come and help us? No, we got to figure it out. And that's why I'm saying this is not rocket scientists. This is a huge problem all over the nation. But if other people can do it, we as natives are resilient. We are the smartest people in the world because we have to figure out how to do everything with nothing and look good while you're doing it, right? So that's kind of why I want you guys to think like this.
Really fast, but I know we're about out of time. Can you go to Zenni Home, Zenni, standardized, a fully commercial, very high quality living units. They have 2 models, that's it. You're not changing the dimensions, you're not changing anything. They have 2 models of their units. by having two models, they can bring their costs significantly down because they're not designing and engineering, and their procurement, they can actually get into an assembly process rather than a construction process. But I bring them up. This is built, this is on Navajo land, the factory is, staffed by Navajo. And we're doing a 93 unit full mixed use project with their product in Mesa, Arizona. So it's being built up in the northern part of the state, trucked down, crane set like Legos down in Mesa. They also can be completely standalone, like an ADU or a full single family home. And they're a great example. There are many products I could show, but I wanted to show this one obviously because it's pretty incredible. What they took was a situation where the federal government shut down the power plant that was up there and eliminated a ton of jobs. And a group came in and was able to use part of those facilities, turn it into a modular assembly facility, and replace those jobs.
Wow,
With this.
that's cool. Wow, that's really cool. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And they're really cool too.
They're really cool.
Nice.
Yeah. That can be done.
So did we put the sexy back into construction? I'm just asking a question.
Yes, you did.
Well, I want to double down, and this is Ann, the human being speaking, not Ann, the representative of commerce speaking. I want to double down on what these two gentlemen have shared is that, number one, trees don't, we all know this. I mean, I grew up in Grays Harbor. My grandfather lived in the Clearwater, in the logging industry. Trees don't grow that fast. We are losing things to climate change. We need to find alternative methods. I know that we all already know this. Dan, I love that you brought the hemp wool. I love that.
I got hempcrete over there too.
Right, and for those of you who are not aware, hempcrete was introduced to, I think, the IBC in January for analysis to be included in building materials. It's been used for, I think, 30 years, 40 years in France and in Ukraine, but I don't know that any studies of its seismic resiliency have been done yet, but it is a renewable, sustainable material, and it would be really exciting to see it going forward. Oh, thank you very much. It's fast, it's efficient, but modular is exciting because if you're able to put together a factory, you can employ folks, we can teach trades, we can help our colleagues become proficient, and we can help our young people see a pathway to employment. We can see our elders be housed and safe and warm and comfortable, because these houses are incredibly warm and cozy. And it's a work that can be done indoors. Modular is built indoors and through all sorts of weather. You're never too hot, you're never too cold, you're never wet. And then it goes together just lickety split. It's really neat to watch it get put together. So I would strongly encourage looking through this. I happen to actually live in a structurally insulated panel home. It was built in 1993. I live on the next sort of hill over from Dan, and the first year that we moved into our house, the power went out and it snowed 2 feet. It took more than 12 hours for my house to go down 7 degrees in temperature. It's that well insulated. So and that's a house that was built in '93. Imagine what it would be like now. So I strongly encourage you to investigate that as a building source. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Really